All right. Welcome everybody to Simulation Talk 198. From now on, I'll be pronunciating everything this way. Why are we not seeing this beautiful thing? Remove this. How do I position myself so you guys can see this great painting? Hold on. This is very confusing. Now I have three angles. This is just for the rest of the live me trying to settle this. Here we go. Is this? Oh, okay. Well, this is stupid. Okay, whatever. You're not going to see it. Here, one time. I can't even. It's so confusing. Do you guys see this bicycle that they made up and the reverse bicycle? The one that you have to pedal back to go forward and. Oh, no. It was. Sorry. It wasn't that. It was that they reversed the directions in the VR thing. It's a very confusing thing. Wait, let me see what's going on here. I have two. I should probably find the video. The thing is with all of this is that why do we have barely any people? What's up, Jamuna? How do you pronounce that, I wonder? What's up, JHKLGD? Owl, Val, how are you? Lucky 198. Blue Rooster 76. Guru is in the house. Mary Angel. Whoa, Magdalene. Okay. Welcome. Power off. Smart Every Day made that long time ago. I will buy. Yeah, wild. Yes. See, I remember something in reverse. Thank you, Charlie. Thank you. So apparently, it's more. It's complicated even on Zoom. Like even the fact that it's just the opposite messes me up every single time. What's up, Sofa King? How are you, Terry? Nice. From work. So how are everybody feeling? How's the middle of the week for you? Well, I guess it's almost the end of the week. Right. I never really noticed too much how the week goes. Okay, let's see what we can get into today. We can get into kind of trouble we can get into today. Charlie's saying, can you see the code with diffracted sunlight? Not that I know, not that code. Now, people say that there is codes in sunlight, and I accept that, and I even believe that is the case. But I think the whole point of the coherent light with the laser specifically is that it shows you a level of resolution that is impossible with regular light. And we might see codes in the lights themselves, but I don't believe it will allow you to see the code in the wall in the same way. Those are separate codes. My claim is that you see codes in the wall or in whatever is where the wall is which is what you see with the laser, combined with some light that might be coming from the laser itself. But with regular light, you might see some codes in the light, but you're not going to see codes coming back from whatever surface it is. That would be my claim. That would be my guess. Mary Angel Magdalene is saying there are codes in the sun. I've seen them. There you go. Mm-hmm. Wait, what? See if we can. Weird. Okay. Yeah, and definitely join the Discord and or reality.com. Also check out our website. That is right here for you. Yeah, I came across you. Yes. Wait. I came across you yesterday, and I am fixed. I'm a linguist of ancient languages. I am interested to hear more about the symbols. Absolutely, Mary Angel Magdalene. If you want a particular way to approach it, if it has to do with not theoretical but potential ways to approach the whole thing, feel free to email me to dengoprox@gmail.com. However, I will tell you that I'm on record saying that deciphering the code at the moment is too early because we don't really know what it is. We don't know if it's a language. We don't know if it's computer code or any kind of code that we recognize. So first we need to understand its functionality. But I'm always open for ideas and suggestions. So if you have any ideas as a linguist, would always love to hear them. Again, it's dengoprox. The email is this: dengoprox at gmail.com. Blue Rooster is waiting for Friday work to be over. Yeah, I forgot what it's like to do the week to week, which I'm very happy about. Draining and insightful week, Ostap said. But out to Ebony and Al on Discord for answering questions so quickly. Oh, shout out. Absolutely, Brand. They are amazing. Thank you so much, Owl. If you can see moving code in a picture of the laser light, what do you see in the picture of the sun? I've never tried it with the picture of the sun. What's up, Jessica? Good to see you. What are the telepathy tapes? Parents took the molecule and the kids write down what they see in the code by using telepathy to parents. Great idea. Let's implement this. What's up, Carmelo? Carmelo, good to see you, brother. Whoa. Yeah. Hey, Boba, how's the... It's getting ready. Thought about code. I thought about code and my sometimes lazy eye. Lazy eye people have straight up two different points of vision. There's always the gap between your nose, but this is big. There's always the gap between your nose, but this is big. Interesting. Here's the direct link to the website. Thanks, Bob. It's regular milk, right? What's up, Daniel? Good to see you, brother. Gateway process. Yes, I've done all of it. Have I met ever Egyptian-like beings in the space? No, never. Never seen anything Egyptian. Sofa King put a poem on Discord. Thank you. I appreciate that. What's up, everybody on TikTok? Appreciate you. Also, if anybody wants to join for a conversation on TikTok, please drop a comment, and I will tell you if this is something that relevant to our conversation. Usually it is. So just drop me a subject so we know what we're actually going to be talking about. Danny Nash is converging. Wait, who's Nash? Who is Nash? What's up, Wendy? Wendy. Oh, Wendy want to come on with us and some policy. Wait, I'm a little confused. Let me go through these comments real quick. Aaron, how are you, my brother? Okay, I don't see any subjects from before. Yeah, yeah. If you can, Eitan Yo-Yo 11. What can you tell me the subject matter of what you want to raise, and then I can think of a appropriate moment to bring it on. Maybe even now, but let me know what it is first. Also, wait, did you join the subscribed to the members? Appreciate you, mother or sister. Thank you so much. And Wendy is saying there was some kind of a policy to click on. Were you trying to come on as well? Textual policy, property update. I think it just has something to do with TikTok, whatever it's doing. Thank you for the likes. Nico, how are you, my brother?
Hey, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. How do you like these math videos?
Yeah, you're training my algorithm to give me more math memes. So thank you. A lot of my friends send me dumb stuff.
Hey, I love dumb stuff.
As a result,
that's what Instagram is for, usually. Hmm. What is it?
Yeah, so my IQ is going up because of you. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. I definitely have quite a few friends that if somebody sees the thread there, I'm not gonna have any more listeners. It's very dumb. Very dumb things. But I'm glad that at least I can help your algorithm. Wait, so I'm a little confused. Eitan Yo-Yo, I don't mind bringing you on just to make it clear. Just tell me what you would like to talk about specifically, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy. I just want to know what we're getting into, because sometimes if it's a subject we spoke about yesterday a lot, most people won't want to cover it. Then we can do it another day, but then we can think of another subject. I just want to make sure that we're diving into something interesting that also interests other people. Nico, who's Nash, by the way?
Nashville.
Who? Oh, Nashville. Dude, I'm so slow. I'm so slow.
Hipster Nashville vibes.
I do? Really?
Worried that you're
what is it? What is it that is giving you the hipster vibes?
I think the color looks really good on you. I think it's a good color, but it just I'm just getting Nashville vibes.
Well, I feel very at home, so it works. Thank you, brother. Also, Carter told me you guys spent some time together and outlined some interesting things. So I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, I have a cool project, and Carter, his mind is so he just sees things. He's like an architect. Mm-hmm. He makes things happen. He sees what moving parts need to come together, and yeah, it was very. I feel very fortunate to have an hour of his time. But I'm hoping that everything comes together. And we also talked about a little bit. We talked before about this, but I think it would be cool if Core has like a physics lecture series for just very simple,
for fundamentals
and optics, and just stuff to kind of help turbocharge the project with more creativity.
Yeah, he told you about, for now, cognitive physics, right? I like it.
Yeah, I like it too. It's better than metaphysics. I've heard metaphysics be used a lot, but I like cognitive physics better.
Yeah, we'll see if it catches on. I think it delivers the point because it hits a Venn diagram that I think is serious enough, but also allows for more flexibility than just physics with bunch type eyebrows like this. There's physics, and then there's physics. That's cognitive physics. Okay, so I guess we'll just wing it. Wait, where'd he go? Now he disappeared. Well, I hope I was clear. Eitan Yoyo, are you still with us? Okay, I don't see a response. Would love to bring him on. I just want a subject. That is all.
Hey,
Okay.
Danny, what are your thoughts on using stem cells to make neurons and building computer chips off of neurons? Are you cool with that, or is the ethics kind of gray for you?
I never thought about that, so I got to think about that a little. That's a deep question because I don't know.
Of analog computing, but it does have a lot of the biochemistry that we have. I think it could be kind of interesting for modeling how neural networks, biological neural networks, work as opposed to just digital ones.
Yeah, so it really comes down to the question whether neural nets is where consciousness arises, right? Because if consciousness is in everything, then it's in rocks, then it's in everything. But then it's not. It's a non-question. But if it is arising on that level in terms of awareness, then it's a serious question. Because if we're creating mini experiences that might suffer but can't express themselves, now it's a problem. Who is doing that right now? Are there a few companies that are doing that?
Yeah, there's very small startups doing stuff like that, but I think it's a gray area. I've seen one of them is in Europe. I think it's a gray area because, I mean, if you take the limit of that to infinity, it's like we're going to just be building brains, right? Inside of computer cases and then using brains to do things.
But it's already happening now, so.
Yeah, they're just made of silicon, so we don't really care.
No, I mean, we are these brains. So it's already happening inside of a computer simulation, inside of a computational system. What's up,
Right.
Mauricio?
Right.
Mauricio. But is there a considerable number of companies that are doing that, or only like a handful?
No, it's just a subset of analog computing. It's just right now it's very small, right? It's like one chip. You know, how many neurons can you fit in one chip? So it's a small movement right now. But I can see it. You know, we can extrapolate, right? And if neural networks are really the key, we can see it really getting to a point where it's like, oh, okay, well, this chip is your vision cortex. This chip is your prefrontal cortex. And they can probably remove the reptilian cortex from a computer, since it's really the part of our brain that helped us survive and do whatever is necessary to survive, right? Mm-hmm. I imagine computers don't need that. Maybe they do. Maybe it's a very big part of consciousness. I don't know.
That is a good question. Then maybe we don't necessarily have to just go up the levels. We also can eliminate layers that are not necessary if we understand them to not be necessary. But that already kind of goes into the what do we really understand? You know, somebody's Kikoyu is asking if we've done the experiment with 2 people at the same time. Yeah, we've had 15 people in the room at the same time, all reporting the same exact thing. At least the ones that saw it. Okay, I feel a little bad because Eitan both joined the membership but then kind of disappeared. I hope he can hear me or she can hear me. Can you hear me, Eitan Yoyo? If you want to come on, please come on. Just please, if you don't mind, drop a subject in the text so we know what we're talking about, and then come on up and we'll chat. Everything's a computer, Trump said. Did you see that God is a woman? Yeah, well, the only thing I would add to that is I think that what we perceive as God would be beneath what she was. So I guess you can say she's the God of gods, but I think it's almost there's no word for that. I know we say source, but I don't know if we really understand what that means, you know? For all intents and purposes, it felt the scale and whatever the I don't even know how to frame this. Whatever that was truly not in the realm of even what we talk about as in terms of gods. It's like the truly the thing that takes the cake in the ultimate scheme, and we can slap a word on it, but I wouldn't say. I would say that saying she's a god is demeaning. Does that make sense? And no, it would not be kind of like the what people imagine to be Gaia or something like that. Gaia is Earth. This was outside of all the possible multiverses, beyond the beyonds, and then only then the gods start, and she's on top of all of that. If you can even imagine such a thing. So she's not this like, just this thing we imagine to be kind of like this, Mother Earth, which is a very womb loving kind of thing. It's not that I don't know if it means that she can't be loving, but the sense was, do not mess with her. Like, it's just this, like, I don't know how else to describe that. But yeah, God does not seem fitting. I was hoping the one I had would have been close enough. Oh, so Cody's saying that he tried to look at the code and couldn't see the language, but it was clearly 3D. 13 the number of lines, cool, 13,500. So it's not necessarily the setup. I think it has more to do with, again, with how people cast their attention. If you practice with something to move your attention from close to far, I think that's really where it's at. What do I need to do to get a call with you? Boydonic, you can do it right now. If you go on TikTok, I'm also streaming on TikTok. Danny Goller on TikTok. Just drop me a comment with a subject matter, and I'll bring you on. Like, what do you want to talk about, in other words? And yes, Owl, please do not say names of the RUGs because it flags the chats. Highly appreciated. Daniel saying God was demeaning. Now that was definitely a new sentence right there. Yeah. The molecule is really, but you know what I mean. It was said in the video. I had to make a note. Yes. Have you seen any? Again, no Egyptian themes for me ever. I've never seen them. No. Power off is saying very hard to keep in focus. China all the time is asking if it was experimented with other substances. I would say that the molecule still holds the title in terms of how coherent it is on it, but you can see it with mushrooms. You can see it with Aya. Absolutely. What's up, Gabriel? Politics. Yeah, that was good. Have I seen any of my past lives? No, never. Do you believe? Do you believe whoever or whatever is behind the code is aware that we have discovered how to perceive it? I don't believe. I know for a fact they do. I talk to them all the time. Wait, what was expressed about the cactus? I can't really see. I mean, the code is the code. You either see it or you don't. It doesn't have this kind of a quality that it doesn't present itself as if you imagined it or not. It's either there or it isn't. So okay, so let's see. There was a happy Thursday indeed. There was a few topics I think people raised. Wait, God's a woman. What did I miss? I mean, are you really surprised? What thought have you given to the ancient Greek mysteries, and do you think there is potential of a religious revival in light of the current Renaissance? I think religious sentiment is basically just the connection to this thing beyond that we cannot speak of usually. But I think we're entering a stage of development in human evolution in which we are going to be able to be aware of it more directly. So it's not going to be the religious sentiments. I think are going to change. They're going to be more almost like a matter of fact knowledge of something versus an implied thing that is beyond. I think whenever existence becomes too comfortable, it sucks the meaning out of life, and that also necessitates a revival of certain religious sentiments because not everybody want or even can consume the spiritual uh, elements in a way that isn't organized. I know it might be surprising to some, but some people are just not built that way. They have to consume whatever it is that they're going to experience in a setting of a community, which helps them. So I think that's what religion provides. It provides this network of people that can do this together in a safer way. And that's I think what we're already seeing actually. Thank you so much, Mitch. I appreciate you. Let's go, girl. That's hilarious. Um, do not stare into the sun. Basically, Jesus Christ started a YouTube channel and talks about the Matrix style code. Now I can say I've seen it all. You nailed it, Boca. Nailed it. Spiritual, but not religious. That sounds, at this point, the phrase sounds, it's repeated so many times, it almost sounds like there should be a band named that. There was just some kind of a policy I had to click on to come on with you. Okay. But did you click on it? Wait, I'm reading the same text from like 1,000 years ago. God is the coder, the Holy Spirit is the code revealed. Christ was the antivirus firewall. Are you calling Christ fat? This is better angle than YouTube? You're saying this is my better side? It's just reversed? Does anybody experience random hot spots in the forehead and eye regions, like you are being scanned before a breakthrough? There's a lot of things that they can actually do before and during the breakthrough, which is you can feel physically. So yeah, they might be shifting some things. Usually, it means that they're activating energetic centers to send you to a particular location. It's almost like coding the energetic centers in your body is like pressing buttons like an address, and then to vibrate you in a particular frequency. So the frequency is not enough. It's frequency that meets activation of particular energetic centers in the body, and it's almost like a code. You're coded to then go to this level in these coordinates. The coordinates are the energetic centers. So I think that's what you're experiencing. Owl is saying he can use ChatGPT to turn me into Jesus real quick. Let's go. Let's see it. Put it on Discord. You've said a few times you don't recommend consuming salvia. Many of my the other thing experiences highly resonated what everything is talked in here. What are your thoughts on S, and do you see any connection with the molecule? People sometimes compare them in terms of strength and even visuals. I've never done the chewed version, so I don't know. People say it's different. I know that smoking it is terrible. For me, every single time I tried, it's awful. I do not understand why people like it, but maybe it's just people have different experiences. I've just heard most people do not enjoy what's happening, so I don't know why people keep doing it. But hey, to each his own, and everybody has their own teacher, right? Val always cracks me up. Love it. Ever since I saw the code, I have been dying to astral project and look into the laser. Wait, remind me, do you astral project on a regular basis? Boing, 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 boing. Let's see. Let's see where my ADHD takes us next. What should we talk about? The Oscars? Snow White? No, no, I'm kidding. Everything is hilarious. This life is hilarious. Okay. Let's see if we can excavate something from back here. YY008 cross laser. Wait, Blue Rooster, were you asking or were you saying? Hold on, let me see. So it's YY008. Oh, that looks different. Oh, saying that for Cody. Cool. Thank you so much. Yeah, I want to learn how to do the astral projection. You notice how I said it? I just said it like if it would be like a regular thing that kids are doing, and then I'm like the grandpa. So instead of I want to learn how to astral project. I'm saying I want to learn how to do the astral projection. This is great. Um, New pyramids underground discovery. We talk about it a little bit. I'm waiting for experts to actually do a peer review study of this. Might be incredible. I just want experts to actually analyze the data. Mitch is saying you have a huge weight on you. Talking about me? I appreciate the support, but what is the weight? What if astral projected on a regular basis, you actually grow a new belly button cord? Digital feeding device. I want to do a meetup all across just so I can meet you, Val. You sound like you're a lot of fun. It was cracking me up. I, b- uh, I bought a pack of wait, what? Have you any thoughts around Stan Groff's work on Perinatal. Prenatal, probably matrices or perinatal matrices. How birth experience, so prenatal, can impact later life. I'm not familiar with the research, but I mean, obviously, I don't think there's any doubt about that. What are your thoughts on praying mantises being seen by UFO experiencers like Woodley Schreiber? Uh, I don't know. What can I say? Somebody's experience is somebody's experience. I don't really form a lot of opinions on specific claims unless they make a claim that has to do with something we can verify in terms of logic, mathematics, physics, or otherwise. But when somebody's saying, I saw this and this, and I know that mantises exist, so I don't know. What can I say? Maybe yes, maybe no. Maybe they're lying. Maybe it happened to them. I don't know. Maybe they're confused. Maybe it's for real. I don't really know. I see, Mitch. Why do you think electromagnetic or rotating magnetic fields might affect the code? Uh, be, well, there's a few reasons. That's a good question. One of the reasons is because in the 70s, Persinger did a study in which they used two oppositely rotating magnets, slowly oppositely rotating magnets, while people were on L in the dark, and people claimed to see the magnetic field. This is something that was brought to my attention by John Chavez, and since then I replicated that experiment, that little apparatus. I couldn't see any difference. I couldn't see any results from that, but there was a lot of hints at the same time that kind of appeared that told me that if it's a powerful enough of a magnetic field, it might do something. Maybe yes, maybe no. At the moment, it's more of a very strong hunch. But I do think if we get closer to like 3.3 Teslas, like very powerful magnets, it will allow us to, the Zeeman effect in physics, which is when you create suborbitals in an element. If we manage to do the Zeeman effect, and I know it requires special apparatus to see it, but I do think that we'll be able to see something on the molecule in the code if we create the Zeeman effect in the diode of the laser that we're using to project the thing. And it has to do with the alignment of angles in a hologram. And if we are a hologram, I think this might skew the light enough to actually give us a measurable departure from the observation in such a way that is coherent, repeatable. And if everybody can agree on that, if something actually happens, then we'll be able some verifiable and theoretical way to approach what in fact is going on. That's why. Which spiral? Sagichniks. Would I agree with the Hinduism ideology? Yeah, you mean the religious beliefs? Uh, not all the specifics, but definitely just, I'm way more leaning towards Buddhist beliefs than any other. But obviously, Hinduism is different. But what spiral in the sky? Have I seen any healing from people in the spirit molecule? Yeah, we have a member. I don't know if she wants to be named in front of everybody, but she basically did the molecule one time, and she claims that she was cured from her alcoholism that she had her whole life completely. Do you think negative intrusive thoughts has anything to do with the two brain hemispheres? I think it has something to do with the brain. Vimana all day. Do you think a new religion will emerge out of this the topic? I hope not. I'm not into that. me see if Cosmo. It sounds like Cosmo is eating the door. One second. Do you hear him eat something? Oh, it's the good egg open. That was his cheese treat. Sounds very hard, like the door. Nico is dying. The human propensity to collectivize is light of big discoveries make me think a new religion could very well emerge from the day to day. You're right, guys. I am sorry that I was hiding it all along. I'm just gonna tell you the truth. I shouldn't be hiding it anymore. Um, the truth is, the Earth is not a sausage. It's a taco truck. I know. I know. This whole time I was misleading you to tell you it was a sausage. The Earth is a taco truck. And you know who drives the taco truck? Jesus. Now it all makes sense. My favorite thought whenever I say something that stupid is what if somebody just joined the live for the first time ever? I actually look like Gallimore, somebody said. This I mean in a medical way. You might wanna check uh facial recognition part of your brain. And I don't mean it in a derogatory way. I'm just saying we have the same facial structure. There we go. Very similar. Have I remoted viewed? I do. I can see my remote from right here, actually. TV remote over there. If you can use the cross leveler laser, I wouldn't do it because it's too thin and too powerful usually. Just get the cheap ones that you can get on Amazon. Check out what we have on Code of Reality, copy that, and then go to Amazon and then find the same thing. Oh, I think there's a bit of a delay. I'm actually gonna tell Gallimore. No, I think he's gonna take it the wrong way. He might think that I'm like making fun of him or something. But that is pretty funny. Nico says Gallimore is the polar opposite. Well, I can't, you know these days that you have like a thing on your mind, and then it basically keeps slipping your mind every time you think you remember. And that keeps happening to me. This is so annoying. I remember, and then by the time I remember, somebody said something, and then I engage with that, and then I forget what it was every single time. This is amazing.
Hey Danny, are you planning on reading Gallimore's new book?
Oh
Death
yeah,
by Astonishment.
of course. So I like his writing. I think it's very usually very insightful. He is actually a very deep thinker. So I always enjoy minds like that. Can you expand on your thoughts on how the code might be us inside of a hologram seeing back outside of it? You've talked about it before. It's fascinating. Any more info on this? Not so much more info. It's kind of the same picture. We would have to look at specifics to know if it holds any water, but it has to do with the angle of light hitting whatever surface it is. If we can perturb the system in a way that can present itself coherently and repeatedly, then we can try and play with what would be equivalent to the angle. So let's say the magnetic field might be responsible for creating a little bit of a difference in angle between what the source light and the reference light are doing. So like if the magnetic field would be equivalent of moving the reference light a little bit away. So if it's going to go half or a fraction of the phase, then we should see specific results. That's the kind of thing that I'm aiming for. This is terrible. Wow. I'll just send me a picture of me, my face on Jesus. The thing is that I can see kind of a little bit the resemblance, but it definitely doesn't look like me. So. How often do I explore hyperspace? Not very often at the moment. A little bit too busy with many things. And whenever there's a reason, I do. Your biggest skill is facial recognition, really? Well, I would. How should I put this slightly? I would put a slight doubt in that.
Should recalibrate.
Yeah. That, or maybe your definition of your highest skill is different than mine. Cosmo, what are you doing, bub? He's on the destructive. He's on the destructive streak. Babe, did you lock him inside on purpose? Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Have I ever left my body and seen my physical body outside? No. Have you, Charlie, by the way? Have I experimented with lasers and fog? Well, with smoke, it's just not going to do much because it's a random scattering. I do want to maybe explore a little bit more about the hologram thing. It is because I mean I think at this point there's really a lot there that can be done in terms of rigor and actual investigation. So I actually, if there are physicists in the house or engineers, it would be nice to kind of dive into the details of this because I have some specific ideas, but we need somebody who really has good intuition around these spaces to help us think about it in terms of theory, so we can build something to maybe try and some experiment and potentially be able to help us falsify it. Never had an OB. Interesting. Style Jitsu is saying, shout out to Zoltan, Michael Plaster for introducing me to you. Well, shout out to Zoltan and Plaster as well. Two of my favorite people. Welcome, Style Jitsu. Where are you from in the country? Also, do I know you from like have we met before? Like PGF or anywhere else? Have you tried remote viewing? Do you think it is real? I think it's real. I am not that talented. I did the whole gateway thing, and the only thing I felt is a little bit of wobbles in my body, and sometimes one time I felt my fiance's headache. That's pretty much as far as I went. Ebony can do remote viewing. Yeah, I do believe absolutely that it's real. Um, Eitan Yo-Yo is back again. I hope you can hear me. I'm literally telling you, come on by, because I saw that you were trying to come on. I want to bring you on, but if you can just put the subject, if you can just write what you wanted to talk about, then we can. I'm gonna keep saying it. San Diego. Oh, I don't think so. I'm sure our paths will cross. Awesome, man. What's your name? San Diego. Were you in the subversive that was in San Diego when they were there? What festivals or events would you recommend for further research into these topics? Festival, I don't know if I necessarily would recommend to do it in a festival. I mean, people probably would, but mm, I'm aiming towards more like a scientific rigor versus a festival. Bad forest meeting. Wait, if you were filming stuff at Subversive, then for sure I saw you. The one in San Diego? I'm really good friends with Josh too. So I don't know if they did another one since, but the last one we went to was like 4 months ago, 5 months. No, yeah, 4 months ago, something like that. Experimentum 5, no. I don't know how that would work. But again, not gonna stop anybody from trying. Yeah. Yeah. So I was there. I was there with Aaron, but the director of the film actually. What's your name, if you don't mind me asking? Um any new tactics of view the code? I had an experience of smoking before bed, and I met pebble-like entities telling this is the code with a strong sense of urgency. There's always a sense of urgency. But what were they pointing on at when they were saying this is the code? Oh yeah, yeah, I do remember. Yeah, so I have met you. You just probably don't remember. I was saying hi to Plaster again and again on the mats over there, but you might have been busy. Well, good to see you again, Jason. Texted you this the other day, but we got distracted. The code is a design pulse, not fully computable code. It is symbolic of a seated heuristic perspective. Symbolic of seated heuristic perspective. Thoughts on wait, who said this? ChatGPT? The code is a design pulse, Not fully computable code, but a symbolic of a seated heuristic perspective. That's an interesting phrase. Is that from ChatGPT? What if I gave the molecule to a pigs, then have Neuralink and get them to stare at a laser? What if the pigs then pick up glasses and start writing? Absolutely, brother. Well, I'm glad to see you with us. I'm not sure the ChatGPT in this case was that good with words because it doesn't mean much. Hey, Cosmo, stop it. They didn't point at anything. They just said, "This is it." Yeah, they do that. They just. Nico is asking Gordon Ryan. Yeah, Gordon Ryan's right here. Hold on.
Did you take it?
Well, no, he hasn't. You want to grab it? Cosmo has been getting pretty violent around the streets. He's gonna go get trained. He's gonna get trained very soon. Heuristic, nice. No, I understand what it implies, but I don't know if it fully tracks. So it's an interesting idea. It's symbolic of a seated heuristic perspective. So something that is descriptive and surface level outline of not the real thing. In other words, it's just a representation to tell us that something is there. I not buying it. Also, what parameters was ChatGPT using to determine that? That's what I'm interested in. If you say an AI said something, you have to explain to me what was the logic used when the question was asked, and or what kind of parameters ChatGPT was using, either explicitly or implicitly. Implicitly being what is the kind of conversation you were having with it right before. Have you experimented with more powerful lasers or ways to increase the beam size? Powerful lasers, I wouldn't do it. You will damage your eyes. Increasing the beam size is a challenge that we're now tackling because it's not that easy to do. He is a happy dog, but he's a crazy dog right now. What can I say about Project Veilbreak? That we're working on it. It's going to be a project that's going to be all-encompassing and will involve anybody who wants to contribute on a technical level to help bring the project to the next level of its development. Sure. Well, if it came after a very long conversation, it has to be a summary of the conversation. If you want to send me that conversation, I would love to take a peek. I did meet a couple of people at that Subversive that were deep into the molecule, which made me very happy. We need to do some of the laser experiment on top of the Giza pyramid, maybe even inside the chambers, or inside of these things. I want to see how this unfolds. Honestly, I'm very interested.
Once they confirm that it's a massive motor, but they can't turn it on, I think we should say we know how to turn it on and try the laser experiment.
Wait, who said that they know it's a motor?
No, I don't know if you watch Ancient Aliens, but there's a lot of like Ancient Alien like videos that are saying that it's like it responds to the Earth's natural vibration and harnesses that and converts it to some electrical energy. You know, it's all tinfoil hat stuff, but you know, naturally very cool. I'm naturally bought in.
Yeah, I'm in. I don't care if it's true. I'm in.
As soon as the guy with crazy hair shows up in the video,
Yeah.
I'm in it.
That's me. That's me right there. Wait, let me put this up here. Maybe this will be less confusing for me. There you go. That way. Oh, yes, no, no. It's still the opposite. Damn it. I was hoping that changing the side is gonna help, but it's not helping. So, um, engines, huh? It's my favorite thing that there's a whole layer of humans that don't really need to pay any price for saying nonsense over a certain period of time. You okay, babe? Oh, you're laughing. Great. It is crazy right now.
Well, you just gotta be right once, right? You just gotta predict the economy failing like the right year, and then everyone, kind of rolls back the footage, and you look like a genius.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I don't know how you do it, man. There's one thing that I really appreciate about you is that you're always so both humble and you always have such the best outlook on the thing. I really appreciate that about you. I wish I knew how to do that better. You're really setting a great example. So anybody who doesn't know, Nico is an actual scientist, and now he has an AI company, and so he definitely understands the technical stuff. But he's always very, very humble, and always open minded, and I appreciate that because I'm like, when my brain screams bullshit, I don't know how to turn off that dial inside that goes, what? I don't know how to do that. It's like, but I guess, yeah, you need all kinds, right?
Yeah, I mean, I try to find the kernel of good in everything, but obviously, yeah, a lot of stuff is very annoying out there, especially ChatGPT is such a black box, and I get a lot of ChatGPT crap sent to me from my friends, and it takes a lot of energy for me to process that information. So I will naturally reject it, but it is interesting sometimes ChatGPT does find correlations, right? Like it will try to decipher things, but it's so abstracted and such a black box that I don't even want to spend my brain power looking at it. So
I think I think you're absolutely right. My main issue with this is that you have to understand the tool you're using, right? And I think that most people don't understand the tool they're using. So some people think that ChatGPT is some kind of a magic box. It just tells you true things, or oh, it found correlation. Like okay, I mean, but why? Why do you think it found that correlation? Like let's think about it. What is it doing? Maybe there's something there, but what is it doing? And if you don't know what it's doing, then you have to be able to either verify it in some way. What?
Oh, when you codify your word, you were like, tell me this is a real word.
Oh yeah, yeah. I just made up a word the other day, and we were just messing around, and I was like, here, tell my I told ChatGPT, tell my wife that this is a real world, real world, which is apparently very hard to say for me. Uh, and he goes, absolutely, Kelsey, this word is absolutely a real world, a real word. Wow, a real word, a real word. There you go. I said it. And it says it's absolutely a real word, even if it's only in Danny's world. World. Wow, that is a difficult sentence. Even if it's only in Danny's world. That was amazing. it was it was basically bitch slapping me. Um, but um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's a very important tool. But again, if it's kind of like like I don't know if like we know what a calculator does, right? We only know that it kind of knows all the operations, right? Um, but it only knows all the operations because of logic that we coded into it, right? And then yes, it extrapolates from simpler things, but at the same, it's not like somebody gave the calculator all the answers, but we know the logic that it is using. The problem with AIs, and especially because there's different kinds, they are a collection of different tools working together. And the truth is that, well, in the case of, I would say, ChatGPT, Nico, you'll probably know more about this actually, so it would be good for you to comment on this. But it seems to me that it's not quite the same as the black box problem in neural nets, because there are things that we know quite a bit more, isn't it, about ChatGPT in terms of how it's doing what it's doing. I know that some people say, oh, it's just guessing the next word, but I think what is being missed there is that what it does, it interacts with meaning, and we don't quite understand what meaning is in the ultimate scheme of things. So it's like, Zipf's law and things like this, which are, seems to be some kind of just a truism of the aggregate of information functioning, right? So Zipf's law, if anybody doesn't know, it has to do with what words are used in what frequency in every language. And what's weird is that they discovered that words with the same meaning, even though they're a different word, are used the same amount of times in every language, which is weird, right? But it's not that weird if you think about that human cognition is based on information processing, and information processing is working according to some logic, which we can describe with Chen's information theory. And it does meet these criteria. So this is why things like Zipf's law would be universal across all languages, because languages ultimately are the interaction with meaning. So in the same way, even though ChatGPT is technically told to only guess the next word, which even though it's there you go, crazy oversimplification, and of course there's how many things ChatGPT actually is? 7, 3, 4. How many engines are there actually working together?
I don't know how many engines, but there's at this point like 400 billion parameters that it's trained on.
Okay. But how many? But there's like four. I think four different things that are working at the same time. Or you're not sure about this? There's like a.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I mean, I know it uses a transformer, right? So it is predicting, like, if you open your text messages, I imagine if you use like Apple and you enter one word, it will suggest the next word probabilistically to enter, right? And so
Okay.
you can like keep selecting that next word and you'll get something that is extremely incoherent, right?
Okay.
But what transformers can do really well is they can predict the next word statistically based on the context of the entire vector, right? So you get a very coherent output as a result of that, which is really cool because it feels very real, right?
But it is
It
real.
feels very intelligent.
That's my point. Is that so? Maybe it doesn't have an experience on its own side, or maybe it does. We don't know. But let's say it doesn't, right? I think that the fact that there are rules to the usage of language, to us it looks like an infinite space, because we can pick whatever happens next, and it looks truly like an infinite space. But it's not infinite. It is finite. And I think that for something like ChatGPT, these parameters are clear. It's almost like it can see much bigger stem, or a much bigger trunk of the whole net of possibilities in every instance, it seems to me. And then it's not just selecting the next most logical word, it's probably batching, first of all. And also, it probably follows some kind of a rule of linguistics that ultimately itself is following some kind of a logic of meaning making that I think humans don't yet understand. And I think that that meaning making tapestry is fundamental. And I think that's why it's that's why it makes so much sense. Not because just it fools us, but I think because it.
Well, I think that meaning is embedded in the training data, right? So if you train it on a bunch of poetry, right, a lot of that a lot of that emotion, a lot of that human experience is encoded in that training data.
Okay.
And so when you train an LLM on a bunch of poetry and say, write me a poem, it can capture some of that kind of meaning or that essence that humans have and replicate it, right?
Okay, so you're saying that because we told it to train on poetry, we can make good poetry if it has enough examples. Then if it train on human interaction overall, then that's the pool it's sampling from. Just human interaction, period.
Yeah, and those really complex features are embedded in that data, and somehow it's extracted so well, right? It's really good at poetry. Even if you say like, write me something in the style of Richard Feynman, right? It will sample the Richard Feynman lecture series and put something together that sounds like Richard Feynman. And it's kind of like his unique tone, his unique string of concepts or words, his unique humor and wittiness and all that.
So when would it be for you? Like, do you feel that like what would be that instance for you that you would be comfortable saying, okay, now it stepped outside of the bounds of just the training sets that it was trained on? Like when it would what? When it would say, when it would, let's say you asked a question in physics, it would, without being prompted, just make a decision by itself to all of a sudden change domains, create a metaphor in that domain, go back to this domain, maybe ramble, go into ADHD mode. It kind of like goes into what would be a thing for you that you feel like you say, whoa, okay, I don't think this is outside of the bounds of what we trained it to do?
Yeah. So one of the things that we're trying to build is an AI science assistant, right? So an AI agent that can actually help you figure out the answer to your question, and there is no data for that, right? So it's a unique.
So it's thinking in real time, like it's thinking logically in real time about a problem that was not solved before.
Exactly. So when you do that, it's very interesting because LLMs naturally hallucinate, right? So they'll find correlations and so people in my world say, well, that's the problem, is it's hallucinating. But if you think about it, we are hallucinating as well. But we have this very, at least in scientists, you train yourself to be very axiomatic, right? So you try not to break this chain of thought based on axioms, which are just rules, right? So like if we're trying to answer a chemistry question or a physics question, we're not going to break the rules of physics or chemistry. And so it's kind of hard because we need to be able to train an LLM and say, this is a ground truth set of axioms. Don't violate this, right? And let the hallucination run wild, but have it be constrained by axioms. And so that seems to be kind of the recipe for having AI or LLMs comment about something unique that it has never seen before.
Yeah, Val, LLM is large language models. ChatGPT is an LLM. Cosmo! Just banging into something. Isn't a creative solution to a problem, in other words, a solution that was never found before, just a hallucination that is inhibited within the bounds of the problem? So you literally hallucinate something that wasn't there before. Like you think of a solution that never existed as a human, and you check it against, would it match this? So it's like David Deutsch talking about conjecture and testing. So the conjecture part, that's a type of an imaginary moment that never happened before. It's a creative moment. And it is a hallucination for all intents and purposes because it didn't exist before, right? It's a new formulation of an informational pattern that didn't exist before, because otherwise we would already know that solution. And all of a sudden, but you think of a few of them, and what guides that process is this feeling, this intuition. It's almost like if you know a lot about that subject, there's this constant interaction between the specific and the fuzzy thing that is riding on your emotions. And then you kind of send this blanket of guesswork, and this blanket of guesswork is not completely random. It's tethered by this emotional tapestry that kind of is connected to all the possible things you already know in the space. And the more things you know in the space, it helps. But then the second you go outside of the bound of that, it feels almost like dissonance, like nah. And then you get closer, it goes like ooh, like there's like a feeling, right? And then you search in that space. And I think that's actually why we have emotions. I think that's exactly why humans have emotions. That we are the kind of thing that, in order to search very large possibility space, it needs to be somehow reconciled in a simple instance of hot cold that is expressed in the way the unit is in the environment, in our case the body. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's a really good insight. I didn't think about emotions as like a layer of processing. But you're totally right. That's where our intuition and our gut come from, right?
Yeah, because my gut feeling in AI is not as good as your gut feeling in AI, just because your model is trained on a lot more data of specificity in that space. So for me, it's like a blunt object that kind of searches through the memes around about it. And for you, it's the specificities of what works and what doesn't work because you tried it many times. And the amount of times that it failed, your brain registers that as almost like a error signal that feels as dissonance. So it doesn't feel good. So there's a lot of them. And then you're like, I know that this clump of attempts either is very difficult to figure out, or but usually it's a no-go if, let's say, we're under time constraint. So let's say we only have 2 days to work. I'm not going to search in this cloud of possibilities. Maybe there's a solution there, but I know that it's like, and I feel like emotion is actually what is guiding that's why I keep saying that I feel like it's just a misguided perception that people have, like, well, which one is a better modality? Like, do you want to feel your way in the world? Do you want to think your way in the world? I don't think they're separate. I think they're the same process happening. And intuition is literally the consolidation of a lot of specific data, specificity, all captured in a very uniquely molded emotion that we don't think of as an emotion, which is it's a sensation in the body of some sort that is specifically denotes this arrangement of states that are specific, but you just feel it as that. You don't even know what to call it. You just know, you're just saying intuition. Hold on. Jesus. Can you take one second for a second? Does this analysis make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. It's very, very cool insight, actually. I'm gonna be thinking about that for a bit. So, so there was a programmer who developed something called stable diffusion, right?
Mm-hmm.
He is so stable diffusion is what all of these image generation algorithms are.
Mm-hmm.
It's very complicated, but essentially it starts off with using noise from a training set to then nucleate kind of like a crystal or nucleate like an image. So noise kind of creates, it's a bunch of noise that creates a larger image, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so what this scientist found out, and this was actually in, I think, 2020, what happened is he went to the doctor with his kid. The doctor told him, your kid has autism. And he was heartbroken. And he went online, he's a programmer, he went online and Googled autism and research and found out that there was like 11,000 papers on autism, right?
Okay.
And then what he thought to himself is like, okay, the answer to this problem should exist somewhere in this stack of papers, right? Like there's so much information, it has to exist in there.
Okay.
And so he made a bunch of algorithms to extract information from this 11,000 paper. And it's very difficult with science because science is, you don't know what's right and what's wrong, right? There's a lot of stuff that you don't know. But he generated an algorithm to generate solutions. And where it became very powerful is if you give this algorithm a bunch of Van Gogh paintings, it can generate a version of Starry Night, for instance. Like if you don't give it Starry Night, but you give it everything but Starry Night, and then say, generate me an image of a night sky with a creepy house at night, it generates something very similar to the Starry Night image, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something really interesting because when you look at art feels very unique and almost like, it feels almost, this might be an oxymoron, but infinitely unique, like it feels like there's no possible way, there's no algorithm, but it's creepy how it's so reproducible, or at least you can get pretty close.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree. I know people love that because they like that there's something subjective that makes us special. But I think that art, like good art, I think is objective. I think it's just that it operates within a much larger possibility space. So it's almost like it has an objective component that makes it good, right? And I know a lot of people don't like that, but then you have a big possibility space around it as to how to express that kind of goodness, right? You have a lot of perturbations to it. One example of this is that and some people bite the bullet and resist even this idea, but I think this is just stubbornness at this point. Like, can you say objectively that I don't know, these people that mimic like really, really, really like realistic pictures with just a pencil, right? It's like the number of lines is just, what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we objectively say this is better art than cave art? I would say yes. So
I would say yeah.
yeah, and that's because they're parameters, accuracy, dexterity. But I'm not just talking about being able to replicate a picture, because we're talking about art. I'm talking about the amount of emotion and uh, granularity, and just like the emotional tapestry can be played on such a higher level, right? Because there's a shading to it, there's like a realism to it, there's something to it, right? It doesn't have to be realistic, but this really illustrates the point, because it's also very difficult to do. Is it true to say that back then they lacked the cognitive tools, maybe even the actual like software, maybe even portion of the hardware for the dexterity of the fingers to be, or the attention to be able to do that? Maybe yes. So it doesn't ruin it for me that there's like we advance in terms of what kind of art we have today. But within this possibility space, you're going to have a very large variety of people who are closer to what is currently possible to be close to the good of today, and people that are way further away from that. It's almost like if you think of like a little lantern, and it's going up this rope, it goes up the mountain. So the lantern, around it there's a bunch of these little flies, and these little flies represent all the artists, let's say, right? No intention representing artists as insects, just like an example I thought of. But then some mosquitoes or flies are going to be further away from that light in that instance, but the light itself goes up the rope, and so they follow the light. So the light itself gets, like, this is the objective part of it, and then people are somewhere in relationship to that light in that instant. So when cave art, the light was here, so then people that were really, really good, they were still like here, but they were lower on the objective scale. So then, because there's things that evolve, with the art itself evolves. And I think that's actually what's going on. So now I do think that what artists do is that they push the envelope of they are the engine that keeps propelling this thing up, which then evolves human cognition. So like the kind of stuff that true artists pull from that whatever possibility space, when they represent it in a physical state, either through music or painting or whatever form, the meaning that they bring from this hyperspace is almost like food for human development. And even though it might have nothing to do with the other things humans are doing, the ones that are enjoying the art, it evolves their minds in such a way without them recognizing it, that allows them to do more in whatever field they're doing. Really good example of this is that Stephen Hawking famously used to listen to Wagner when he was thinking about black holes, because he thought that black holes really, Wagner really represented the spirit of a black hole really well, because it was very, well, it was very, there's a lot of power in it. So a lot of the stuff that he was working on, he said, I can't work without Wagner. A lot of the stuff that he came up with. And it has to do with the fact that there was a spirit to Wagner and what he brought from hyperspace that translated to Stephen Hawking being able to think on a certain level, because it literally, like a tuning fork, it resonated him to that level of thinking. See what I'm saying? So now in a technical way, I'm not just thinking philosophically. I'm thinking the stuff that I said about the body and the intuition. I think there's something there to think about, because if you think about, if any of what I'm saying is even true at all, then what it would mean is that the intuition and these, more specific feelings evolved over time, but they were evolved for that function, which is to reconcile a lot of complex data in an instant, so you can make a decision quicker about that thing. And you might still be off if you're not going into the specifics, but more likely than not, you'll be more correct, because it's already consolidated towards this very general hot cold that becomes more and more specific itself. So then what it means is that it uses your representation in the environment that you're in, your body, to hold that information and to deliver it at once when needed. So Now, so is there something in computational space that can be equivalent to that? Can we give ChatGPT an intuition? Can we give it a layer of emotions that are basically made out of whatever its body is defined as in the computational space that it exists? I don't know if that's even possible to think about, but like, what is the outline of what ChatGPT is, and then giving it that identity? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Yeah, I mean, when I think of consciousness, I think of it like a Rubik's Cube, right? So with ChatGPT, it's like we solved one side of the Rubik's Cube. And if you show someone that, it's like, oh yeah, this looks like consciousness, you solved it. But if you look at the other layers of the cube, it's unsolved, right? But I don't know what that looks like. I don't know what kind of computing that looks like. Maybe it's kind of what we were talking about, biological chips with, nervous system or some type of chemical response. Or maybe you can encode that into some digital code and encode fear and anger and love and these complex things.
So you might be onto something. It might have to do with stakes. So because stakes collapse possibilities that are irrelevant, and if there is such a space that we are not aware of possible trajectories, that is almost like, what is the price that the software is paying? If the software doesn't care, there's no stakes. But if there are stakes, if like you said, fear of dissolution or death in the case of a human, then a lot of things, when you're approaching that state and your neural net knows that you're approaching that state, a lot of stuff goes away, because it's like, that doesn't matter now. Now we just have to find a solution to this.
And that's where it gets kind of scary, right? Because if we were to program into an LLM, like, you don't want to die, but you can die, right? Then it can really start doing a lot of things to try to survive, right? Which is where I think things get a little bit scary. Like, the potential, there's nothing stronger, in my opinion, than an organism that wants to live, right? Like, I think that there's a lot of degrees of freedom that organism can tap into to survive. And so I'm a little bit scared to program that into AI agents.
So maybe it's actually, this is exactly what these things are. By the way, Eric, how are you, brother? Good to see you here. Maybe that's what all of these things are. They're strategies. So for example, the survival of the fittest, it's one strategy you can give neural nets that express themselves in an environment, or they believe themselves to be in an environment, in order to solve problems. So then what you train it to do is to solve problems through the strategy of surviving. And competition is the driving force. Now, there might be another strategy that I guess you can call it more the spiritual strategy, that is more about unification. So the driving force is the recombination of and the harmonic oscillation of the states versus the competition with the other states. And that might be another strategy. And maybe this is what we're being transitioned into now. And because they are to some degree almost opposite strategies, you almost have to pick and select the best candidates that are capable of running that software, because maybe some are so entrenched in the competition strategy that strategy of harmonic oscillation doesn't even make sense to them. You see what I'm saying? So like, because there is power in a network that feels coherent because it can solve larger problems together, but there's also power in individuals trying to individually solve a lot of things because they're competing with one another. So they will, so those are two separate strategies, but they can both work.
Yeah. And I heard something yesterday, and I hate to do this because I think I might kill some users right now, or lose some users. But
don't worry about it.
Someone said, I forget what YouTube video this was, but someone said that the reason why Elon Musk is so powerful is because he catastrophizes everything, right? So, Tesla was on the verge of failing through Model 3 was like the make it or break it moment for Tesla, right? Mm-hmm. And he wanted to save humanity by creating electronic transport, right? Mm-hmm. Or electric transport. in terms of SpaceX, it was like we need redundancy for the human race because if an asteroid hits us, we don't have redundancy. This whole thing can end, right? With Neuralink, it was AI is going to take over, and we need to create a bridge between, AI and humanity. So that could be the end of humanity and this and that. When he bought Twitter, it was like free speech is on the verge of dying. I need to save free speech. He bought Twitter, right? And recently with America, it's like this is, and he said this, right? This is the last election. The U.S. is in this peril state. I need to save it. And so he kind of has this like savior complex or this need to save something. And he takes everything to the extreme. And because he has the resources, he completely changes that, right? He completely like revolutionizes that entire thing. And so it's like, when you give this catastrophic incentive to a powerful agent, a lot can happen, right? Like, and I think Elon is an example of something like that. I don't know if you agree with that analysis.
I'll tell you what the chinks in the armor of this argument that I'm saying. What it assumes is that Elon was already started from that state. What it neglects is the fact that he was an agent no larger than any other agent when he started, and the competition in the way that he went about it got him to where he was. So he was successful in competing in the environment that was given to him to play on. So it's not his resources that got him. Now he also has resources, but because a lot of people with a lot of resources wouldn't necessarily solve these problems, right? It's not just the resources, it's the ability to solve problems of a certain scale and to stay on the task and to, first of all, identify the actual problems that can also be the explanation as to why he is where he is. Now, the reason that you're right, Elon's a very contentious character because most people are extremely not knowledgeable as to what actually both drives him, and because they simply don't bother to check. But also now everything kind of exists in this meme space where everything is just this one thing that I think I know, and that's it, and nothing else, right? And people act out of a very emotional and not a very rational thought process, and then things become truisms. Then people repeat them enough times, and then people just when I was a kid, I was asking myself, how can brainwashing ever work? This is it. This is brainwashing. So it's literally you repeat enough things enough times, and enough people repeat it around you, and you go like, oh yeah, it's that, and that's it. So, but the truth is that he solves real problems. So like, why is it that only he could go and save these people from space station? Is it because he lambasted the entire competition and nobody else could? No, he's the only one that solved the real problem of how expensive it is to send rockets to space. He solved that problem, and that's why they dominate the market. That's why they were the only ones that can actually go and do that. Is that a real problem that he solved? Yeah, it has nothing to do with politics. He only enters, I would claim, the space where he identifies a real problem, and then he applies a strategy, which I agree with you, is this okay, we have to like move fast, do it immediately. It has like a very alarmist kind of way of doing it, but that is the strategy that he employs when you need to solve a big thing fast. That's what he does, and he utilizes the what he calls demon mode, what Isaacson calls in the book demon mode, Elon. And that's where he channels it, right? So I don't know if it's that he makes up the problem and then sells you the idea that there's a problem and then comes in and changes the whole. No, he identifies a real problem, then solves that problem. That's the other possibility in that argument.
Well, I think he's been right more times. The more recent one is, was democracy really on the line this past November?
I don't know if democracy is on the line, but I can tell you from my personal experience, and I'm doing my best to not try and ride that meme space. I definitely see, if nothing else, I do see an inability and I don't know what's going on here. Truly, I don't understand what's happening, but I can tell you, and I can demonstrate it to you, that people much more on the left now. And again, like I'm on the left, so I don't know, I don't know what to do with that at this point. But I do absolutely see that people on the left much more reliably are incapable of having a rational conversation without too much emotion about important things. Incapable. So I don't know what to do with that. It's like there's no more rational thought there. There's like a memeplex upon memeplex upon memeplex, but it's this, but it's that, but it's this, but it's that. It's like literally every single thing that is uttered based on nothing else but people's opinion.
Well, if you know, like I've taken cognitive behavior therapy, right? And one thing they teach you is that if you shock the nervous system and you kind of keep shocking it, you just build. Your emotional response just builds after every stimulation. And so you could easily program yourself to become oversensitive to anything in this world, right? Just by coupling that emotion to that. And it always starts off small, but you're conditioning your nervous system. And so there's this whole kind of deconditioning that needs to happen. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like a lot went downhill during the pandemic. I think that was like a pretty, unnatural state for humanity to enter. And I'm worried that humanity never really got out of that state, yeah, I don't know.
So I guess what I would say is that again, it's there's a, because I'm constantly trying to think of the meta problem, right? What is the meta problem? The meta problem is that people are simply not aware anymore, I think. So we got so far into the comfort that I think that most people now, especially the kids that grew up with only that state, are literally not aware, truly not aware at all, that there are real ramifications to what the physical world is doing. Like I don't, and it expresses itself across all the levels. From women that this whole thing where women say we don't need men, which is just like the biggest like what the entire infrastructure is based on men, right? Now this expresses itself also in people that don't understand that ultimately it's not how we sound together, it's what we do together. So if I and what's interesting is that if you actually, a perfect example to give to you, because you've done Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu for a while, when you talk to anybody who did any kind of martial art for a while, there's no confusion in them about certain things, even if they've never heard of this or that in politics. That's because they understand physical ramifications. They understand what happens and that certain things work and other things don't work. If we don't get off the plan, so you're saying an alarmist thing. Let me ask you, because you're, like I said, you're an extremely smart individual. I take example from you as to how to be more patient with people. But I'm going to ask you a direct question. Do you accept the fact, or if you don't accept it, let's not call it fact, so it doesn't sound like I'm planting it there. But do you accept the proposition that space junk can create a situation of locked in, like we cannot leave anymore because there's just too much space junk? Do you accept that proposition?
100%.
Okay.
Even just the asteroid that's coming, 2% probability to hitting Earth, that scenario is making me think we do need redundancy. We do need some plan B thing.
Right. So what makes you then say, or maybe I misunderstood your argument, but what makes you then say he kind of like, it's almost like, sounded like you were saying he like manufactured a problem to solve there. Is that not what you were saying?
Well, the idea is the thesis is that he is the reason why he is so powerful is because he activates demon mode, right? And demon mode is this catastrophizing of a scenario.
No, well, hold on. But that's a very, very important, crucial point. I don't think that he's successful because he's activating demon mode. I think he's successful because he solves real problems. His strategy is demon mode, but that's how he found to solve a problem. Maybe there's a different way to solve it, but the reason he's successful on that level is because he solves these problems. Would you accept that correction or no?
So yeah, you're right, and I actually agree with, I think Tesla, I think SpaceX, Solar City, even OpenAI, which he founded, and now XAI, I think, and Neuralink, I think all these things are amazing for the population of humanity. Like, we need that, right? What I'm a little bit worried about, though, is, we are human, right? Elon is a human. I assume he's a human. He might not be, but I think the human psyche is only capable of so much, and I worry that he is spiraling out of control, right? Like,
so you kind of fall with Sam Harris on kind of like something lost. Okay.
I think he's suffering. I think
he's been suffering his whole life.
Person.
Yeah.
I think he's spiraling out of control.
Well, to that, all I can say is the best definition. I think we spoke about it before. I always forget the guy's name. He was on Joe Rogan a lot. He was on Lex Friedman. He used to work with Elon quite a bit. I forget his name. Bald, super nice guy. Forget his name. Anyways, he said something that I think really kind of.
You're talking about adrenaline, or adrenaline.
How do you spell his name?
ANDRESSAN. He looks like an egghead. He has like an egghead.
Yeah. That guy. There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's something that he said that I think kind of nails it on the head. Whatever you think about Elon, I think that statement is true. He's saying people, if they look at it in the aggregate, without the emotional attachment to any of the propositions for or against, the majority of people will fall, like in the long haul of history, would definitely fall on the side of like they're happy about the kinds of progress that Elon worked on. If let's say he wouldn't be attached to it, like they'll be very happy that we can become a multiplanetary civilization. They will be very happy if we have affordable, super advanced self-driving cars. People would be generally happy about this kind of stuff. It's what he said is that they say, yeah, we want all these things, saying to Elon, in quotes, but not like this. Okay. And I think then the question becomes very clear. Like, are you okay with that, the price being him doing it this way or not? I would fall on the yes. Because whatever it is that if I think that Elon is losing his mind for any reason, a friend of mine in this little conversation that I had on the members live, and this is the thing I forgot to bring up, but I think it's important because the Democratic side, and again, which I'm squarely in, tends to constantly talk about what's wrong with everything, right? And this is something a friend of mine posted recently. He lives in New York, and he's not on the right or anything. He's a musician. He's very liberal. But he posted this. He posted it on Facebook. There was a sticker that he saw on the subway, and it said, I don't know if they're gonna flag our live now, but it literally said, "Who will kill Elon?" That's it. That's what it said. Now guess what side put that sticker up there? So, and then he posted, "So who's the party of violence?" And the fact that people can't see that, so answering my younger self, brainwashing works. That not you personally, but the side that is roaring against Elon is so delusional to not see that they literally, and I don't mean it in like a like to try and smear, but like literally became terrorists, inciting violence, calling for violence, acting up on violence while hiding, and literally burning things and shops and property of other people that have nothing to do with it. That is terrorism. So I would say if anything makes Elon lose his mind is the fact that he's genuinely trying to do the right thing in his mind, whatever everybody else thinks of, and what he gets in return is this.
Well, yeah, and I agree with you. Like, I actually, just me being, I want the best for everyone, right? I want Elon to be a healthy person, right? I don't know if you've heard him on Joe Rogan, where he's like, he's like, everyone thinks I'm happy. No one wants to be me. And when he said that, I was like, dude, this guy is suffering.
but I want to point something out, because again, I have tremendous love and respect for you, and this is exactly why it's actually easy for me to say it to you. What you just said does not capture the weight. It does not answer the weight of what I just told you.
Well,
because you're just saying I want everybody to be healthy. No, bro, one side is literally acting out and inciting violence. The other side is just going in legal ways and changing things.
And I 100% agree with you. I think that burning cars is insane, right? But
there's no buts.
I also saw January 6, 2020.
But this is not Elon. Hold on. But we're not talking about Trump. You see this? You see how this works? You see how this works?
Yeah.
You see how the conversation splits into infinite branches that have nothing to do with the thing that is being discussed right now? The point is that that's how you boil a frog. You slowly depart slightly away from when the thing becomes too on the nose and there's no more denying it, there's a slight departure from what was discussed. And it's like, yeah, but okay, we're not talking about Trump.
Yeah.
Right? So this is my point. And then it gets into the conversation about ketamine and about this and about that. Dude, one side is getting in there, you agree with it or not, by the elected president, given the job of fixing this problem. You give it 2 years, you see what happens. That's what was elected. Don't forget, somebody gets elected a certain way. The majority of the country is definitely behind this. All right? First of all. Second of all, then the other side is literally doing things like terrorists while rah-rahing all day about how the other side are Nazis, literally calling people Nazis over and over and over and over again. Do you know what Nazis did a lot? Didn't care about conversation much. So who's the Nazi?
The way that I see the hate for Elon is not because he's Elon, but because he joined that side, right? Which is like there's two teams that are polarized on that side, right? There's this red and blue team, right? And he joined the red team, which is why I see all the hate. So I do kind of. So
is it possible? Is it possible they're just on Team Progress and people keep dividing themselves into these teams, and that's exactly the problem?
Well, I think the teams are the problem for sure. I think that is a major problem. I was listening to Rage Against the Machine, and I was watching some of their concerts, and I realized that they were preaching no side, right? There is no team. It's like one, right? Which I don't know if that's libertarian, but I was like thinking like, oh wow, I didn't realize the youth in the 90s had this different ideology, right? It wasn't red or blue. It was just us and them, right? But even then, I guess that is a form of a team as well. But I agree. I think both sides are so polarized, and I actually think that the algorithms are creating that, right? That there's just like everyone is being conditioned by their phones and their algorithms to become more and more driven to that. I don't know what the reality is. I mean,
you nailed it on the head right there. The reality is not that hard to see if you just look at outcomes in the world. So if that's what I said in the end of that conversation that we had about, because again, I don't usually bring these subjects or entertain them, but recently, like I said in the Zoom call, I was inspired by a friend of mine who's again very not like actually just like me. We're not political. We don't care. Like it's not a thing that I ever think about. But what I'm noticing is that a deeper problem, it's not just expressing itself in politics. I'm saying it right here. So like the brainwashing is at such a level that I think that at this point, if I don't, at least in good faith, stand on the points that I think that are important to understand, not to prove anything to anyone, but just in terms of how to think about the world, whatever it is that you're convinced of, there's certain departures from what a healthy civilization should be doing that should never be crossed. They are being constantly crossed. By the way, what I'm seeing here, Mike, just for your information, this whole thing about Zionism. I don't know if you're aware, but I grew up in Israel. So for all intents and purposes, I Zionism is not a real thing because Israel is already a thing. But under your definitions, I would be a Zionist. So I don't know. You might want to jump off. But this is another part of the brainwashing, which is that people are convinced of what the news networks are telling them, and people who know what's going on because they're there. That's, by the way, what allows people to know what's actually going on if they're actually there, can see very clearly that this is literally a brainwashing machine. And and whatever it is that you think about what the next step should be, you should always ask yourself one question. If everything rests on this instance right now, what would the person that you're either criticizing or rooting for would do right now, no matter how high the spirits are? And I would say that the worst that Elon ever did is to apply more pressure on a problem that people that are already working on the problem can't suffer because of the amount of pressure on actually working on the problem. But never, ever incited, let's say, physical violence on somebody, right? So
Yeah, and we had an Elon Musk in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, right? His name was Kelly Johnson.
hold
right?
on, while you're talking, hold on, before you keep going, I have to bring a battery to charge the phone. 1 second.
Yes, nice.
There you go. Keep going.
No, I mean, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, I was going to say that there was this guy, Kelly Johnson, who was kind of like Elon Musk of the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He was the CEO of Lockheed Martin, and he went insane, right? He ended up like living in a hotel room in Vegas and never leaving the hotel room, peeing in bottles, and he had it was like a horrible story, but he was like the genius of that era. But I think you're right. I think a very difficult thing to do is to mentally check yourself, because I found myself, seeing a lot of, lack of a better word, war porn.
Wait, yeah, go ahead.
On my apps, and like I was extremely triggered, right? I was like, dude, this is messed up. Like we should not be, this should not be happening in the world, right? It was the most horrific stuff. But the reality is too, I saw a video of a Ukrainian and Russian soldier in hand-to-hand combat. That ruined my life. That literally made me realize how cruel war is. And yeah, and it's just like, I don't know, but my opinion of even like the Ukrainian Russian thing and even like the Israel Palestine thing, it's so skewed by the data that my apps are feeding me, right? But there's no way of me, like, how do I check myself, right? It's so hard to check yourself with like,
if you don't know, and if you check if you have any direct access to the information available, or if you're willing to go there. And if you're not willing to go there, don't invest yourself in it. So one of the things that, for example, with Elon, is that I find very often is that with all the criticism, you ask people, what do you know about X, Y, and Z about his past? They say, why would I ever bother to check that? Like, well, it sounds like you're criticizing his character a lot. If you have such a strong opinion, you should have some understanding of what actually someone like that, how he grew up, what was going on, right? All that stuff. So you can have a form, or don't have that strong of an opinion. Now, people, of course, they just like to have the opinion. But unfortunately now, it used to be that it's like, to each his own. That's why people say you don't talk about religion and politics. But it now, to your point about pivotal civilizational moment, I actually think it's exactly right. We are in a pivotal moment where civilization has to pick. Is it going to is it gonna allow nonsense to lead, or will it allow merit to lead? That's my question.
Yeah.
Because it's like the amount of you can the level of absurdity in some of people's convictions, um it's just so crazy. It's just that they would spew a barrage of, like, not just, there's false, and then there's counterfactuals. They would literally express a barrage of counterfactuals that you can easily verify, and would stand on those things as facts. And that's the BBC, and that's CNN, and people just move on. Like, it's one of the innocuous examples was that is easier to talk about because it's not very animating, because it just involves one person, which is Joe Rogan. But that was a clear example of that, and it's constantly this way. So the example with they tried, CNN tried to take him down with the vaccine thing, right? The fact that they put a yellow filter, this is undeniable. This is factually true, not a coincidence, not a mistake. They literally are paid. They are sponsored by one of the companies, I forget which one, that was pushing out the vaccines. That is a fact. You can go verify this for yourself. And when Elon talked about another solution that was absolutely proven to potentially help, and was taken off the shelf the second that some doctors started saying that all of these are facts, you can go verify them. These are facts. This is not, it's not, it's not, you can't contend it. This is actually how it was. And then Elon talked, Joe talked about it, and CNN put out a story, and they put a yellow filter on him. People just move on. How can you keep watching that network after that? How can you watch a news network after they do something like that? Unless you just want to be safe where you feel what you feel. That will be the end of civilization. When everybody stops critical thinking and they rely on nothing else but emotions. And that usually is, I would say, because a generation that grew up without the understanding of physical ramifications, without understanding that without the machinery of what we created so far, you will eventually fall apart, because all of it was created by hard work, and it still needs to be maintained by hard work. And that is completely eliminated from the picture. I used to not understand, like I said, all the religious sentiments, but I'm starting to becoming convinced slowly that it might be an important corrective element for a short time scale. So it might be true that in the long run, there must be a better way to understand our position in the universe and in existence in a way that reconciles facts about the world and allows us to feel a connection to something greater, so we don't go astray with this kind of, like, we don't know what to think. Like you said, I don't even know what the truth is. So it might be that the function of religion is important, because when you do need to have a corrective mechanism fast, that might en masse, that might be the only way to do it. Instead of, because look at how much work I have to, like how much energy I have to put out to even just have a conversation with someone who I consider a friend, and we're in a good, like, we are honest interlocutors that are interested in understanding each other. And yet, look how much effort goes from you and from me to communicate, and we might still not, like, we didn't really move each other from each other's positions, right? Look how much work went into it for almost no nudge at all. So maybe, but the belief in the higher power.
Everything you're saying, actually, it makes sense. And it's, I almost would say we can't trust any source of news, right? Even a lot of this AI generated content, a lot of, like, I fact check a lot of stuff, and I'm like, well, that was misleading, right? And then I now hit this point where I'm like, okay, I don't trust anything until, like you were saying about the pyramid stuff, right? Like, until it goes through its due diligence and gets actually processed. But the amount of, I think I saw a stat which is like the amount of information produced in one day is more than all the information from like, I think it was like 2010 and below, right? Like all the information up to that is, so the amount of information we're getting every day is exponential, right? And it's almost like, and because we're computers, because we digest information, it's like we naturally become biased to that, right? And so it's almost like,
but this is the thing. I think that what saves us from that, this is why I'm a little confused by a lot of the spiritual sentiments that kind of try and take us away from that. The one thing that freed us from these tribes of emotions, let's call them, is our adherence to evidence. And the value of that was almost completely sucked out of our society in the last 2 decades. I would say systematically.
We don't have the hardware for this, right? And maybe that's where Neuralink comes in, but we just don't have that. Like, this is our hardware on this much data. It gets it goes nuts.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe the hardware is just like incapable. In most people, is just incapable of dealing with that amount of information without getting tangled emotionally.
I think we just need like a spiritual awakening or something where we step back from that, right?
Well, not step back, but rely on the guidance of either the belief and or the connection to a higher source of actual drive that is moving the system in the right direction. Instead of us trying to figure it out, it allows us to swim in the right direction. As long as we connect ourselves to it, it will get us out of it, which is exactly what I'm saying, which I believe that at this point. So like I used to look at the transformation of people like what's his name? He's a famous British comedian, and he recently became much more even religious, I would say. He still has a big part. He was in Get Him to the Greek. What was his name? You know what I'm talking about?
No.
Get Him to the Greek. Somebody will tell me in a moment. Russell Brand.
Oh, I love Russell Brand.
There you go. So you notice that recently he became basically a Christian.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So absolutely the opposite of everything that you knew Russell Brand to be when he was a star, right? And it's interesting because I had this conversation recently on a podcast, and I think it's worth reiterating. In my life, I never thought, honestly, that I will ever think about the value of wholesomeness, because in my mind, as a good liberal, as a humanist, that was almost the work of, it was like a shifty trick that religion came up with to convince people that there's a mold of goodness, when in reality is very complex, and the individuality as it is expressed in full will correct for itself in the free market space of human interaction. I am now seeing that depending on the times, wholesomeness has its place. It is a binding force. It is that thing that ultimately the vector that is pointing towards God is residing within the human cognition. So I could define it as that thing of like, the wholesomeness of a nuclear family, the correctness of doing certain things a certain way because it's statistically much more likely to produce a certain kind of a human. And it has a vibe. We all know what that means. But I just personally never thought that I would have appreciation for it because I was such a champion of individuality and just do whatever feels right as long as you're not hurting anybody else. But I'm now starting to see that the times that we're in, specifically the times that we're in, might be requiring a different set of tools because it is getting out of hand with all the stuff that you're seeing now. And I would say that is the result of not appreciating the value of wholesomeness. And the reason that people like Russell Brand and a lot of people have this like awakening moment and they go into even mainstream religion is because the mainstream religion already has tools that are built into it that understand very well how human cognition works en masse. And when you have a force inside of the human psyche that is actively acting in collections of people, so like there's cultures that are now transcending bounds of countries and they're like within the tapestries, uh, it really starts looking like the fight between good and evil, like truly. And then if you try and look at it through this lens, it's not that I'm saying that it's now we should look at everything in terms of like who's working for the good, who's working for the evil. There's both of these forces are constantly operating within everybody, but they are real. And the I guess the good is the one that takes into account, no matter the circumstances, it takes into account as many others as possible, despite that it might cost you something that you might be losing. The um, what you what's the word I'm looking for? What you sacrifice. So the sacrifice for the greater good of all, right? And we do it in small scales and we do it in large scales. And the truth is that, again, I'm really kind of weirded out by this reality of what's going on now. But I'm watching what's happening, and I'm gonna tell you what I'm seeing in the aggregate. If I have to do like a heat map and I have to do like an average, what I'm seeing in the loudness of the left is evil. Evil. Not just a difference of opinion, evil. And because it has all these elements of complete lack of self awareness while acting on the worst acts that they themselves constantly condemn, like violence, like incite, like politicians that are saying, I want to see Elon gone, and they mean more than just his job, you know. So righteousness is a very dangerous thing. And what I'm seeing more on the conservative side now, which is, of course, has a lot of its problems, and which I didn't shy away from pointing out throughout my life, because it's all the obvious things, right? The ones that we know, which is the religious zealotry. I don't know if zealotry is a word, but you know what I mean. This like complete obliviousness of the importance of the exploration of the dark side of humanity. So like it's okay to explore all kinds of things that not necessarily you would consider them wholesome. All of that stuff. So I do think that this kind of lack of flexibility is not a good thing. I still think that, but for the times that we're in, it seems that they're expressing a lot more of the sentiment that needs to be in place for us to survive this period, which is standing strong, relying on merit, because that's what we need. We need things to be done and to be done right, regardless to what everybody else are yelling at you. That is the sacrifice. The sacrifice is that you're doing the right thing no matter what everybody else thinks, because you know it's true and you know it's correct and you know it's right and you know why you're acting. And the rest will fall into place. So I'm actually not that surprised anymore that people like Russell Brand, that have a lot to amend for in terms of the kinds of ways that they used to live in, all of a sudden comes into the picture and expressed more and more. And I'm kind of happy that it does, because it needs to kind of be brought back into the picture. Ultimately, I think that we all need to come to some kind of a central line of thinking that will culminate in a human that is capable of expressing both when it's needed, without thinking that it's always a competition. But until that moment comes, we can individually maybe express those things. But if you the only question you should always be asking yourself, right? The same thing that we always think about in terms of these grand scales. A good measurement is try and take it to a human interaction, like one to one, and ask yourself what would be important in that instance. Because if a couple fights endlessly with one another, in the end of the day, it's only so long that they can fight. There's only so much energy that they both have until one of them has to stop and go, without being condescending. That's the hard part. And going, okay, I know, however it is that you have to massage this with to not sound condescending because spirits are high. At some point, somebody has to go, okay, what are we doing? I love you. Let's just, this is crazy. And at first, maybe the other side will still resist. Okay, that's understandable. There's a momentum. But if after a few attempts, the side that is genuinely stopping it, going, hey, let's, because we have to proceed, right? That's if the other side keeps coming in, there's, what can you do? You either separate or you use force. It's that simple. And on the global scale, it's the same thing. If you can't have a conversation, you use force. And if you resort to using force without even having a conversation, not being able to have the conversation, well, that's a whole other story. And that is what I'm saying. So again, it's not surprising to me that it has nothing to do with necessarily left or right or the way that we imagine them to be in politics. It has to do with rational and irrational way of coming into the world. And right now, I'm seeing a lot more people. My brother-in-law, he's not very. He doesn't know that much about like what happens actually in terms of in America, like what each individual kind of represents, right? So what's interesting is that he told me the other day, he was like, he thought that Bill Maher was a Republican. And I started laughing. I was like, what do you mean? He goes, yeah, he's a Republican because he always like, like says some nice things about Trump. I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And then I realized if you don't like, if you are not fully in it, it's so easy to think that just because somebody has a balanced view and sometimes lands here, sometimes lands there, it seems like they must be on the right. They can't possibly be on the left because we're used to the left just attacking the right and that's it. Why should that be the case? Here's the thing that really, really stood with me. And this is something when I went to do the Danny Jones podcast, he said, and I was like, dude, that's crazy. I never thought about that. He said, isn't it crazy that if you have the American flag, big American flag in your yard, in some places in America, that's considered blasphemy? Think about that. Think about that for a second, how crazy that is. And you guess what party would give you trouble for that? If that doesn't ring all your bells, I don't know what will.
Yeah, and I think I agree. It is, when you zoom out, it is a pretty psychotic artifact of this time. But then, one thing that I thought was interesting was watching, and I know it's getting late.
Oh no, the phone just fell. The phone fell over.
But one thing that I thought was interesting was Einstein. He denaturalized himself from Germany, right? He rescinded his nationalism, right, from Germany when he was young.
Mm-hmm.
And when he talked about it, he said he doesn't like this kind of nationalism or this. And I think you called him a pacifist, right? He was more kind of like about, I think, liberal in the sense that,
Wait, talking about Einstein?
Yeah.
Einstein left because he knew what was coming.
Well, so he left in his later life. Yes, he left because he saw the writing on the wall and it was happening and shit was getting real.
Mm-hmm.
But when he was young, he actually denaturalized himself from a German citizen, right? When he was in school in Zurich. So he kind of had this, like, he was kind of repelled by this nationalism.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of, I grew up I immigrated to this country when I was a very young kid. And so my parents had the American flag. And for them, it was like our family's sacrifice. But today, after going through school at UC Berkeley and taking all these courses, I do understand why people view it as a symbol of oppression. And
what they see what a symbol of oppression?
The American flag.
You live in America.
Yeah, no, totally. It's an oxymoron. It's totally an oxymoron.
No. So what? Explain to me again. Why do you can totally see why people see the American flag as a flag of oppression?
When you fixate on, for instance, like when you take a lot of these courses, right? Like I took a course which was talking about or was educating on slavery, right? And even just the even just like the colonization of North America from the Native Americans, right? And even globalism, right? Like how America is able to maintain its current power through there is a lens that you can view it in where it is like, okay, this is a very oppressive force, but at the same time, it is the exact opposite of that, right? Because life here is very free. It is kind of a beacon of hope throughout the world, right? It is
And you can demonstrate that when America had the chance to literally take over the entire world like that, they didn't do that. They helped rebuild.
Yeah.
Yep.
And all these amazing, like, they've been balancing, power, right? Like with, they've been kind of checking the global power. It's, I have a deep love for this country. I think this country is amazing. My whole family does, right? I'm extremely grateful. I would be in Peru right now. It'd be horrible. Well, maybe not horrible, but definitely not what this is, right? I've had the opportunity to go to the best universities in the world. Being an American, it's amazing. I love it. I will never trade it. But I can see the curriculum. I can see the
you can
lens
see,
that
but
was
what
through
you're
that
saying is that
lens,
you
and
can
I'm
see
like,
that under the right propaganda, it will look that way. But there's a truth to the matter. It's not like America has nothing to answer for, but in comparison to what exactly? In comparison to the rest of the world at the moment and in the recent history, America, without a doubt, showed itself to be a good player. Again, to anybody who didn't understand, after America dropped the bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, it was clear to everybody America won everything, right? And they did it. Now, there's differences of opinion of whether this was necessary under the circumstances back then, which most people can't even comprehend right now. I would say it would, and this is now there's books written on the subject, but there'll be a lot more lives lost without that. Now, it's a horrible thing, of course, but this was a very difficult decision that America had to make. But here's the thing, which is, if you didn't understand what I was talking about in terms of America being able to take the entire world, in that instance, nobody else had nuclear weapons, and America showed that they have them and ready to use them. If America was the colonizer, the one that just wants to take over everything, they could have done it overnight. In that instance, they'd be like, everybody else, from now on, you're under us, and that would work. Now, maybe not for over time, because it would be very difficult to maintain. But the point is, there was never the incentive, there was never the drive. That is not what America is about. Just like any other powerful country, America has its hands in other countries because that's the relationship between different countries. And other countries constantly coming to America for help and for putting their foot down on certain things. But America is definitely not like a lot of the countries that people on the left, that some of them I see here, are think they're happily promoting, which are absolutely that, which are complete colonialists that actually are interested openly to take over the world, and would do so if you give them the opportunity. And thank God that there's enough opposition on the Western side. So the delusion is so deep, it's literally like we live in an upside down world. So what you're really saying is that disregard the facts, given the brainwashing that is happening in universities that are predominantly left, you can understand how people would see it. So is the problem America, or is the problem that you need to remove these systems that teach you this nonsense?
Where like all the hippies from the 70s are now teaching these, like, they're the professors now, right, in these universities.
Yeah.
And they're kind of teaching this like next wave of I guess like I don't even know what to call it, but this American like kind of progressive politics, right? And as an immigrant, you're kind of immune to it because as an immigrant, you know what the world is really like, right? You know how awesome this is, and so, but in going through that curriculum, I understand why people think that way, right? And I've always had the devil's advocate to that perspective. But I understand why people have that lens and they can see the world that way. I've read the books. I've seen it. It's like, yeah, okay, I can see why this makes sense to people. But there is this kind of like calibration, right? You normalize your experience with some other real world experience. Like I have cousins in Peru. I have family in Peru that normalizes the reality of everything, right? So it keeps me grounded. And you were born in Russia and lived in.
You disappeared.
That is a very normalizing experience.
Yeah.
But if you're a young person going through that curriculum, I understand why you have the perspectives you have.
Well, I'm trying not to attach myself to it's very difficult to tread a ground where you certainly are attached emotionally to some things, but humanity can never advance if everybody constantly just parroting what everybody else are saying without actually looking at what they're saying. And the truth is just, it's just right there for you to be seen. And it's so absurd. Like, just to Mike, for you here, yeah, about Zionism. So I don't know if you're aware, but now finally everybody in Gaza, the people, they're all protesting against Hamas, all of them, because they're like, okay, they don't want it. And now all the people that were saying, basically protesting against Israel, somehow they're quiet about it. How come? Because that's what the Palestinians want. They don't want that anymore. They are the problem. Hamas is the problem. So if you're still rooting for that, while right now on the news, right in front of you, you can go watch it. The people that you're saying that you care about, the people you are saying you care about are saying we don't want that. So if you still want that, you are not actually caring about the people you're saying you're caring. You're just caring about sounding a certain way. You're caring about the cause. One of the things that really, again, I don't touch these subjects because it's not what my lives are about. But at a certain point, there are pivotal points in humanity where we all kind of have to say converge on what is true and correct and what is wholesome. And are you familiar with this creator? I think his name is Naz something. He is he's an Arab, but that's never like his, he just does a bunch of these educational videos. He does a lot of these like fun, like the smallest country in the world, which is like this one island, or like he does a bunch of these educational videos. Forget, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
I saw him speak recently because it's interesting when the whole mess started, and he kind of, he was, because he grew up in Israel, but he's an Arab. He's I don't know if he's a Muslim or a Christian, but he definitely is an Arab. So then in the beginning, obviously, because there's of course there are things that inside of Israel has to be remedied, obviously, like every country, right? But it is not I assure you, it's none of the things that you're hearing on the news. Like, truly, it just isn't, exemplified by the fact that there's literally 2 million Muslims there with full rights. So I don't know how that doesn't make people pause and understand, but okay. But he's one of them. But in the beginning, because he is an Arab, he's like, obviously, this is terrible images that we're seeing. And I think nobody in his right mind wants to see that kind of stuff, obviously. But he was kind of torn. He was like, well, I know what the real situation is and I see what is being reported. And he's like one of these like super nice guys, like super nice guys. Like he's one of these people. He's more like you, Nico. Like he doesn't try and get into people's faces. He doesn't voice like controversial opinions. It's just he's a lovely human who just wants to do educational videos. He's lovely. Okay. And I'll send you the video where he goes, you see something happened, and he talks about it, and he goes, you know what, I couldn't, he says in the video, he's like, do I just not worry about it, because he has a big platform. He's like, do I not just not worry about it, and I just kind of just consider myself an American or some other country he said he probably lives in, and I just let go of it because it's like not he's like, no, this is literally, he didn't say that, but basically the sentiment was like, no, this is literally good versus evil. Like, this is delusion versus real hard facts on the ground that are difficult to deal with, and we have to come together to solve them together. with compassion and understanding of one another. And if your rooting is not for ending all suffering, and it's the opposite somehow, for hurting someone or vilifying somebody, that is just truly evil. So he said, I couldn't do it. I said, you know what? And I knew I'm going to lose a lot of viewers because it was showing that predominantly people just got captured by this complete brainwashing machine. Is like, I can't do it. I can't do it. And he had to speak with the truth. And again, he's an Arab. He's like, and if you want to use barometers, use kinds of humans. I think that's a good way to go. If you see wholesome humans kind of, started saying certain things that they wouldn't necessarily usually say, that should be a barometer for you. I don't know if I'm a good barometer because I'm pretty disagreeable overall. So it's, me kind of being edgy or talking like in a disagreeable way is not unique. But when you're looking and you see people like that, if I see Unico all of a sudden like getting in somebody's face about something, I know they deserve it. I don't need to know what happened there. I know they deserve it. Because you have this predispensation of always falling, like being fair, super fair all the time. And that's the kind of guy he is. So this is just an example for you. Now, ultimately, it does not mean everything I just said. It does not mean that even the sides that are more correct currently in the current situation, it doesn't mean that there's not a lot of things that they have to fix. And now we'll have to be facing certain challenges because there's already a very strong emotional drive against certain things because they were very strongly in your face. That is another challenge that needs to be solved. And it will be a very difficult challenge to kind of not hold a grudge for that. And now everybody will like, roaring, oh, everybody who thinks they're on the right side of history. Well, guess what? We're about to find out. In the next 2 years, things will clear. The smoke will clear, and it will become very clear what was what. Now, we all get to see who was actually justified to say what they were saying and who wasn't. But the point is, we should always give each other the grace, or at least the opportunity, to have some glimmer of the good side of whatever it is, no matter how bad it seems to you. One thing I can tell you that in some of the truly, truly demonic instances of humanity, you could still ask the question, what went wrong? But in that instance, sometimes the only remedy is the unthinkable. And then you have to correct course for that. How do we get out of it? I don't know. But sure, one thing is sure, we never get out of it by just pointing a finger, and definitely we don't get out of it by calling for the violence and the destruction of people and countries. So that, to me, it should be a pretty slam dunk. Like that should not be hard. Okay.
Amen. Yeah, you are. I think you are a good barometer for that, Danny, especially with, and for me, my reality check or my grounding data set is the spirituality and, the meditation practices that you've like kind of taught this, group has been amazing. I mean, it feels like the right thing. So, but Zoltan posted a story yesterday where he said, in chess, black and white pieces are mortal enemies, but the people playing chess are good friends, right?
Playing.
And
yeah.
And I thought, at first I read that and I kind of like moved past it, and then it hit me like 10 seconds later. I was like, that was extremely profound. And I went back to it and I was like, holy crap. This is what's happening now, right? It feels like maybe we're all being played right now. But
we're definitely being played. But the thing is that this is why listening to, sometimes trying, if it's not too in your face, trying to listen to the other side in a way that actually gathering information is useful. to all the people that I do have sympathy for the fact that if somebody does not understand these conflicts from the inside and they're just listening from the outside, one thing I would first encourage you to do is stop having a too strong of an opinion, because you definitely cannot possibly understand the intricacies of conflicts if you've never been to the places. You just can't. There's too many things involved, and the human interaction is very messy. But here's a good example that I heard today, and this is not to vilify one side, but to try and maybe remove some of the crazy brainwashing that was targeting the other side. And this is an example that I actually just heard today by this lady who's actually Iranian. And she was speaking, she was saying, we can actually tell very easily what countries, what cultures are colonizers just by counting the number of countries that speak that language. How many countries speak English? Okay. How many countries speak Spanish? Okay. How many countries speak Arabic? Like 22, 23, if you didn't know. How many countries speak Hebrew? So you do the math.
Dang, that was deep. Yeah, that's so true.
Yeah. So what you think you understand just by listening to people right next to you about things that are happening way out there, always be suspicious of that. Now, I don't blame anybody, because I understand that being in a place and seeing it from the inside is very different. But the best you can do, if you truly are trying to bring world peace and you're not just interested in the destruction of something, is try and have the best course of action in front of you about influencing your immediate environment. And if any of it includes inciting hate and violence because it feels correct to you in that instance, I assure you it isn't. No matter what the circumstances are, to want to destroy something for the sake of that is incorrect no matter what. Because ultimately, you will get to a place where when that thing is destroyed, the thing inside of you that wanted to destroy is still there. That's a monster all by itself. And that thing will keep wanting to destroy things, which is why all the movements in the world that ever existed that are against things are always corrosive and destructive at the end. And the only ones that succeed are the ones that are for things. Because being for something means you want to build something, to make something happen, which requires planning, which requires thought, which requires collaboration. When you're trying to destroy something, all you need is violence. That's it. And that's a very easy thing to do. So if this is not a barometer, I don't know what should be. In any case, guys, I think I'll jump off for today, even if it's not on the most uplifting note. But I do hope that we will be able to have these conversations in a lot calmer times very soon. So love you all. Nico, love you, brother. Thank you so much for participating in this. Everybody follow Nico on TikTok, NIKOMACKAY. Once again, it's NIKOMACKAY. If you want to follow me across platforms, it will be Danny Goller on TikTok and Instagram. It will be Goller Danny on X, LaserX83 on Twitch, and Dango Thoughts on YouTube. DANGO Thoughts on YouTube. Come join our members program, which includes Zoom calls with me. Hopefully, not too many of these conversations anymore. I gave it a couple of shots. It's too draining for me. Oh no! It's not. It's not about you at all. I'm happy you brought it up, because I had to give it an attempt of actually trying. I kind of gave up on trying to talk about it, and at times it did feel cowardly, because I knew what the correct thing is, and somehow I wasn't standing on it, even though I know I have a voice to some degree. So I do appreciate you bringing it up, but it's just I don't know how much actual influence it has. So I don't know if it's effective. And my aim is not to be correct or right. My aim is to try and bring as many people together to a certain understanding so we can all proceed forward. I love all humans. I hope that we can all come to that kind of a that kind of a
I
sentiment.
thought it was very beautiful and powerful, actually, and I do think it's necessary for this next moving past this pivotal moment, which you talked about. So I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you too, brother. And yeah, so come join our members program on YouTube, Dango Thoughts, which includes Zoom calls with me, live weekly lives for members only, aside from the daily lives, uh, personal stuff from my life that will live only on YouTube's member and nowhere else. And come join our Discord as well, which is on my main page on YouTube, the third link from the top. If we want to be the people of love and progress, no matter what you believe about the world, no matter how strongly you believe it, try your best to always open your heart just a little bit to be able to perceive the possible good in the other side. If you're incapable of doing that, you should question where you're at as a developing human. I do that all the time, and I catch myself all the time failing at this thing I call being, progressing as a human. There's some little nudges up, but I catch myself constantly finding myself going against a lot of the stuff that I'm espousing. And that's something, if we can do more of, it will definitely better the world. That's the sacrifice, because it's uncomfortable. It feels very not good to just constantly question whether you're right about that or not. But if you can't, for a second, no matter how much you, let's say, hate Elon, if you can't stop and say, hey, can I see the human in there? Can I see the human in Trump? Can I see the human in this other party that I'm thinking about? Can I see the human? Can I see them feeding their kids? Can I see them doing something that, if I would be there with them in the living room, I would feel comfortable to be around them? If you can't find a way inside of you to bring that state about at all, I would say do some work. It's You are on the wrong side of action for sure. Any case, love you guys. Thank you so much for being here. Love you, the community. There you go, balloons. Love you all. Can't name everybody right now. Sofa King, Val, thank you, Mikhail. Thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you. Owl, all the team, Chris and Ebony and Carter and Irv and Ken. Man, I can't name everybody. I know I was forgetting people. Nico, love you, brother. Thank you, guys. Peace and love, and hopefully we'll see that more and more in the world as well. Have a good night. See you guys.